The vast emptiness of space stretched endlessly around the sleek alien vessel as it glided silently through the darkness. Commander Nixara stood before the main viewing screen, her 6 eyes scanning the star charts with practiced efficiency. For 3 months, her scout ship had been mapping this unremarkable corner of the galaxy, cataloguing worlds that might serve the Velthari Empire's endless hunger for expansion. "Commander, we're approaching the 3rd planet in this system," announced her navigation officer, tentacles dancing across the control interface. "Initial scans show it's within the habitable zone." Nixara moved closer to examine the readings. The planet appeared as a beautiful blue and green marble against the black void, swirled with white clouds that spoke of active weather systems. Her sensors detected vast oceans, sprawling continents, and something that made her pause. "Life signs, lots of them. Interesting," she murmured, her voice carrying the slight hiss common to her species. "A populated world. Run a deeper scan and classify the inhabitants." Far below on the planet's surface, Dr. Kim Tae pushed his glasses up his nose as he studied the holographic display floating before him. The underground laboratory beneath Seoul hummed with activity as dozens of scientists and engineers worked on humanity's latest defense project. The kinetic accelerator, a weapon capable of launching projectiles at incredible speeds, represented years of research and development. "The power coupling is stable," called out Lieutenant Park Sol from across the room. Her fingers moved across the touch-sensitive displays with the skill of someone who had spent countless hours perfecting her craft. "Energy output is within acceptable parameters, and the targeting system is responding perfectly." Tae nodded with satisfaction. At 52 years old, he had dedicated his entire career to ensuring humanity's survival in an uncertain universe. Though Earth had never encountered hostile alien life, the possibility always lurked in the back of every defense scientist's mind. Better to be prepared for a threat that never came than caught off guard by one that did. "Any word from the orbital stations?" he asked, turning to review the constant stream of data flowing from humanity's network of defense satellites. These mechanical sentinels watched the skies day and night, scanning for anything that might threaten their blue world. Seoul checked her secondary display, scrolling through reports from the various monitoring stations scattered throughout Earth's solar system. All quiet on the deep space front, though Station 7 picked up some unusual readings yesterday around the outer rim, probably just background radiation or maybe a small asteroid. Neither of them realized that those unusual readings came from alien sensors, systematically cataloging their world and everything on it. High above in the cold vacuum of space, Commander Nixara studied the results of her ship's comprehensive scan with growing puzzlement. The planet's inhabitants, who called themselves humans, presented a fascinating contradiction. Their technology level suggested they were centuries away from achieving faster-than-light travel, yet their resource allocation patterns were deeply troubling. "Look at these energy expenditure readings," she said to her science officer. "They're devoting enormous amounts of resources to weapons development and military infrastructure. Their industrial capacity seems specifically designed for warfare production." Her science officer manipulated the holographic display, highlighting various installations across the planet's surface. "The concentration is remarkable, Commander. Nearly every major population center contains weapons manufacturing facilities, research laboratories, and training complexes. It's as if their entire civilization is built around the concept of conflict." Nixara found this deeply disturbing. In her experience, primitive species typically focused their resources on survival needs like food production, shelter construction, and basic technology development. The humans appeared to be doing the opposite, prioritizing military advancement over seemingly everything else. What threats could they possibly face on this isolated world, she wondered aloud. They have no hostile neighbors, no natural predators capable of threatening their cities, and no environmental disasters that would require such extensive militarization. The science officer ran additional calculations, analyzing the humans' historical data that their sensors had intercepted. According to their own records, they've been engaged in constant warfare throughout their species' development. They appear to view conflict not as an unfortunate necessity, but as a natural state of existence. This revelation sent a chill through Nixara's normally composed demeanor. The Velthari Empire had encountered countless species during their expansion across the galaxy, but they had never found one that seemed so thoroughly adapted for warfare. Most civilizations fought when necessary, but these humans seemed to fight because it was their nature. She opened her classification database and scrolled through the various categories used to catalog primitive worlds. After several minutes of consideration, she selected Category 7, Primitive Militaristic Society, and added her personal notes about the humans' unusual resource allocation patterns. As the data transmitted back to the Empire's central command, Nixara shook her head, in what her species considered a gesture of dismissal. These humans were clearly wasteful and inefficient, spending their limited resources on weapons they would never need, instead of advancing their civilization in more productive directions. When the Empire eventually came to claim this world, the conquest would likely be swift and decisive. Little did she know that she had just made the most catastrophic intelligence assessment in galactic history. The massive alien vessel, Dominion's Edge, glided through Earth's solar system like a predator stalking its prey. Ambassador Kyle Thresh stood on the bridge, his scaled hands clasped behind his back as he watched the blue planet grow larger on the main screen. At over 2 kilometers long, his diplomatic ship was designed to inspire fear and immediate submission. From primitive worlds, the sheer size alone usually convinced most species to surrender without resistance. "Ambassador, we're receiving multiple communication attempts from the planet," reported his communications officer. "They seem quite agitated about our presence." Cal Thresh's mouth curved into what passed for a smile among his species. "Of course they are. It's natural for primitive beings to panic when they encounter their superiors. Open a channel and prepare to receive their surrender." 3 weeks had passed since Commander Nixara's initial survey. The Empire's military strategists had reviewed her report and decided this world would make an excellent addition to their territory. The humans' primitive militaristic nature would make them useful as soldiers once properly trained and controlled. Their industrial capacity, while wastefully focused on weapons, could be redirected toward more productive purposes under proper management. Down on Earth, Colonel Li Min sat in the primary command center, buried deep beneath the mountains outside Seoul. At 45 years old, he had dedicated his life to planetary defense, though he never expected to face an actual alien invasion. The massive ship that had appeared on their sensors 3 hours ago was unlike anything in Earth's databases. "Sir, the alien vessel is not responding to our hailing attempts," reported his communications specialist. "They're maintaining course toward Earth and ignoring all diplomatic protocols we've established for first contact scenarios." Li Min's jaw tightened. Humanity had spent decades preparing for this possibility, running countless simulations and developing response protocols for various contact scenarios. An unresponsive alien vessel entering their solar system without permission fell squarely into the hostile category. "Open channels on all frequencies," he ordered, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to making life or death decisions. "Let's make sure they understand our position clearly." The message that crackled across space carried no trace of fear or submission. "Unknown vessel, you have violated Earth's sovereign space. State your intentions immediately, or be fired upon. You have 10 minutes to respond before we take defensive action." Ambassador Kyle Thresh nearly choked on his ceremonial drink when he heard the transmission. In his 3 centuries of diplomatic service, no primitive world had ever issued threats to the Empire. Most species immediately begged for mercy or offered tribute in hopes of avoiding conquest. "Fire upon us?" he laughed, the sound echoing through the bridge. "These creatures think they can threaten a ship of the Velthari Empire? What weapons could they possibly possess that would concern us?" His tactical officer studied the sensor, readings with growing confusion. "Ambassador, I'm detecting massive energy signatures across the planet's surface. It appears they're activating some kind of planetary defense network." Kyle Thresh waved dismissively. "Primitive energy weapons, no doubt. Our shields can withstand anything these backward creatures might throw at us. Continue our approach and prepare to demonstrate our superiority." But something extraordinary was happening on Earth that the ambassador couldn't have anticipated. Within minutes of his ship's detection, every major nation's defense systems came online simultaneously. Military bases that had appeared dormant suddenly burst into activity. Missile silos opened across 6 continents. Orbital defense platforms that most humans didn't even know existed began powering up their weapon systems. In South Korea, CEO Moonbin received the activation code she had hoped never to see. Her company, Moon Industries, manufactured everything, from civilian electronics to advanced aerospace components. What the public didn't know was that every facility had been designed with rapid military conversion in mind. Implement Protocol 7. Immediately, she commanded her facility managers across the country. I want full conversion to military production. Within 6 hours, no exceptions. Moonbin had spent 15 years preparing for this moment. Her factories used modular assembly systems that could switch from producing consumer goods to military hardware with frightening speed. Assembly lines that had been manufacturing smartphones that morning were now producing guided missile components. Workers who had been installing entertainment systems were now assembling targeting computers. "This is incredible," whispered one of her engineers as he watched the transformation. "The entire production line converted in less than 4 hours. We're already producing at full military capacity." Similar scenes were playing out across the globe. In the United States, defense contractors activated contingency plans that converted civilian manufacturing plants to weapons production. In Russia, dormant missile facilities came online for the first time in decades. In China, hidden production, capabilities that the world had never suspected, began churning out advanced military hardware. The speed of the transformation shocked even humanity's own military leaders. What they had designed as emergency protocols was working better than their most optimistic projections. Earth wasn't just defending itself, it was revealing its true nature as a world built for war. Up on the alien ship, Kyle Thresh's amusement was rapidly turning to concern. His sensors were tracking thousands of projectiles launching from Earth's surface. Energy readings that had seemed primitive minutes ago were now registering as genuinely threatening. "This is impossible," whispered his tactical officer, staring at the display in disbelief. "No species militarizes this rapidly. It's like their entire civilization was designed for instant conversion to warfare." Kyle Thresh studied the sensor data with growing unease. The humans weren't panicking or begging for mercy. They were methodically preparing to fight a technologically superior opponent with the calm efficiency of a species that had done this many times before. "Perhaps," he said slowly, his voice losing its earlier confidence, "we have misunderstood what we found here." Deep beneath the bustling city of Busan, General Choi Jae stood before a wall of monitors that displayed the transformation of human civilization in real time. The underground command center, carved from solid rock 50 meters below the surface, had been designed to survive direct nuclear strikes. Today it served as the nerve center for humanity's first interstellar war. At 62 years old, Choi Jae had witnessed humanity's steady preparation for this moment throughout his entire military career. What most people saw as routine defense spending and military exercises, he understood as the careful construction of a planetary war machine. Now, as alien ships hung in Earth's orbit, that machine was finally awakening. "Status report on the civilian conversion," he commanded, his weathered hands gripping the tactical display console. Major Han Yu, his chief of operations, consulted her tablet with the calm efficiency of someone who had drilled for this scenario countless times. "The transformation is exceeding all projections, sir. Automotive plants across 7 countries have completely switched to producing drone chassis. The conversion rate is remarkable. Hyundai's main facility in Seoul is now manufacturing 50 combat drones per hour." She swiped to the next screen, her voice remaining steady despite the magnitude of what she was reporting. "Electronics manufacturers have switched their entire production lines to guidance systems and targeting computers. Samsung alone is producing enough navigation chips to outfit 10,000 missiles daily. Even the food processing centers have converted their chemical mixing facilities to produce explosive compounds." General Choi nodded with grim satisfaction. This was what humanity had been building toward for decades, without most people realizing it. Every industrial facility on Earth had been designed with dual-use capability. Every factory owner had received sealed instructions years ago, waiting for the activation codes that had finally been transmitted 24 hours earlier. "What about the orbital installations?" he asked, knowing that Earth's space-based defenses would be crucial in the coming battle. "Fully operational, sir. The platforms that the public thinks are communication satellites have revealed their true purpose. We now have 47 weapon systems in low Earth orbit, with more coming online every hour. Above ground, the city of Busan looked normal to casual observers, but anyone paying close attention would notice subtle changes. Delivery trucks moved with unusual urgency. Factory smokestacks billowed with increased activity. Construction crews worked around the clock on projects that had appeared overnight. The entire city, like cities across the globe, was quietly transforming into a fortress. In a laboratory complex hidden beneath Seoul's technological district, Dr. Oh Sung hunched over fragments of alien metal that had been recovered from the first brief skirmish between human and Velthari forces. His normally neat hair was disheveled from hours of intense work, and his lab coat showed stains from the various chemical tests he had been conducting. "Professor Kim Hae, look at this. Molecular structure," he said to his research partner, pointing at the holographic display showing the alien material at the atomic level. "Their material science is definitely advanced. This alloy is stronger than anything we currently produce, and the energy conductivity is impressive." Professor Kim Hae, a brilliant engineer who had spent 20 years developing Earth's most advanced weapon systems, leaned in to examine the data. "But notice how it's designed, Sung. It's built for maximum visual impact and intimidation factor. The aesthetic choices actually weaken the structural integrity in several key areas." Dr. O nodded enthusiastically, his excitement growing as he understood the implications. "Exactly. They built for intimidation, not adaptation. Look at these joint connections. They're designed to look menacing, but they create stress points that we can exploit. Their weapon systems prioritize appearing fearsome over being functionally superior." This discovery was already being transmitted to weapons designers across the planet. Human engineers were notorious for their ability to find weaknesses in any system and exploit them ruthlessly. Within hours, every defense contractor on Earth would know exactly where to aim their weapons for maximum effect against Velthari technology. Meanwhile, high above in the cold vacuum of space, Admiral Zex-9 watched the transformation of Earth with growing horror. His experience conquering 17 worlds had taught him to recognize the signs of military mobilization, but what he was witnessing defied everything he thought he knew about primitive civilizations. "Admiral, our sensors are detecting weapon production in facilities that appeared to be civilian just yesterday," his intelligence officer reported, his voice tight with concern. "An automobile factory in Germany is now manufacturing military vehicles. An electronics plant in Japan has switched to producing targeting systems. Even facilities we classified as food production are now creating explosive materials." Zex-9 studied the tactical display, showing thousands of red dots appearing across Earth's surface. Each dot represented a newly activated military facility. How is this possible? Most species require months or years to convert civilian infrastructure to military production. His tactical analyst manipulated the holographic display, highlighting patterns in the human response. "Sir, I don't think they're converting anything. I think they built everything with military capability from the beginning. Every factory, every facility, every installation appears to have been designed for dual use." The Admiral's secondary heart began beating faster as the full implications became clear. "You're saying their entire industrial base was designed as a hidden military production network? For that's not even the most disturbing part, sir," the analyst continued. "Watch these population movement patterns. Citizens aren't fleeing to safety. They're reporting to predetermined positions and taking up roles in the military production chain. It's like every human received military training disguised as normal education." Zex-9 realized with dawning horror that his species had made a catastrophic error in judgment. They had assumed they were facing a primitive world with basic military capabilities. Instead, they had encountered something unprecedented in galactic history, an entire civilization that had evolved specifically for warfare. "Get me a direct channel to Imperial Command," he ordered, his voice carrying new urgency. "We need immediate reinforcements. We're not fighting a military force defending their planet." He paused, watching as his sensors detected yet another wave of missiles launching from Earth's surface, each one guided by targeting systems that were adapting to Velthari defensive measures in real time. "We're fighting a war machine disguised as a planet," he concluded grimly. "And it's been waiting for us." The vast armada of the Velthari Empire's 7th Fleet emerged from hyperspace like a metal storm, their hulls gleaming against the starlight as they arranged themselves in perfect battle formation. 200 warships, each one a masterpiece of alien engineering, now surrounded Earth's solar system. Fleet Commander Torghast stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the blue planet grow larger on his tactical display. At 300 years old, Torghast was considered one of the Empire's most successful military leaders. His record spoke for itself: 12 conquered worlds, each one falling within weeks of his arrival. The species he had defeated ranged from primitive Stone Age civilizations to moderately advanced technological societies. None had posed any real challenge to the Empire's superior firepower and tactics. "Deploy the fleet in standard conquest formation," he commanded, his voice carrying the confidence of someone who had never experienced defeat. "We'll demonstrate overwhelming force and give these humans one final chance to surrender before we begin orbital bombardment." His tactical officer nodded respectfully. "Sir, intelligence reports suggest the humans have been unusually active since our advanced scouts made contact. Should we be concerned about their defensive preparations?" Torghast dismissed the concern with a wave of his clawed hand. Primitive species often engage in desperate last-minute efforts when faced with superior technology. Their activities are irrelevant. We'll crush any resistance within hours and begin the occupation phase. But down on Earth, something extraordinary was happening that would shatter the fleet commander's confidence. In a heavily secured laboratory complex beneath the mountains of South Korea, Chief Engineer Park Won had been working without sleep for 72 straight hours. Her team of brilliant engineers and scientists had been dissecting every piece of alien technology they could get their hands on. "The power coupling design is actually inferior to our fusion reactors," she announced to her exhausted but excited research team, pointing at the holographic display showing the alien energy systems. Her voice carried a mixture of surprise and professional disappointment. "Look at these efficiency ratings. They're using a brute force approach that wastes enormous amounts of energy." Dr. Lim A., her chief physicist, studied the alien weapon systems with growing amazement. Their weapons rely too heavily on energy efficiency over raw damage output. They built everything to look impressive and consume minimal power, but they sacrificed actual destructive capability. It's like they designed their weapons for show rather than effectiveness. Park Won nodded enthusiastically, her mind already racing with possibilities. "We can improve every single system they've shown us. Their materials are excellent, but their engineering principles are flawed. They've been so focused on maintaining their technological advantage that they've stopped innovating." This revelation was spreading through Earth's scientific community at lightning speed. Human engineers, who had spent centuries perfecting the art of making things work better, faster, and more efficiently, were discovering that alien technology was surprisingly primitive in its approach. Within hours, design teams across the planet were creating hybrid systems that combined alien materials with human innovation. The first prototype vessel to benefit from this technological fusion was launched from a hidden facility in the Pacific Ocean just 7 days after the alien fleet's arrival. Captain Lee Sol, a former civilian cargo pilot who had been drafted into military service, found himself commanding humanity's first interstellar-capable warship. "Engineering reports all systems are functioning within acceptable parameters," announced his chief engineer, a woman who had been designing commercial aircraft engines just 2 weeks earlier. "The hybrid drive system is performing even better than our simulations predicted." Captain Lee Sol studied his crew with a mixture of pride and amazement. Every person on his bridge had been a civilian just days ago. His weapons officer had been a video game designer. His navigation specialist had been teaching mathematics at a university. His communications expert had been working for a television network, yet somehow they were operating advanced military systems as if they had been training for years. "How are you all adapting to these systems so quickly?" he asked his weapons officer during a brief lull in their preparation. The young woman, formerly known for creating virtual combat scenarios, smiled grimly. "Captain, every human grows up learning to fight. We call it sports, games, competition, education, but it's all the same thing. We've been training for war our entire lives without realizing it." High above Earth's atmosphere, Fleet Commander Torghast was receiving reports that made no sense, according to everything he understood about primitive civilizations. His intelligence officers were tracking human vessels that shouldn't exist, equipped with technology that defied explanation. "Sir, the humans are launching ships with hybrid technology," his science officer reported, his voice filled with disbelief. "They're using our own materials, but they're configured in ways we never considered. The power output is significantly higher than our equivalent systems." Torghast studied the tactical display, watching as human ships moved with unexpected speed and agility. "How is this possible? They've had access to our technology for less than a week." "That's not the most disturbing part, sir," his intelligence officer continued. "They're improving our technology. The modifications they've made to our weapon systems increase their effectiveness by 30%. They're making it better." For the first time in his 3-century military career, Torghast felt something he had never experienced before: doubt. The humans weren't just copying alien technology, they were perfecting it. They were taking systems that had been developed over thousands of years by the Empire's best scientists and making them superior in a matter of days. "Get me a direct communication link to the High Council," he ordered, his voice no longer carrying its earlier confidence. "They need to understand what we're facing here." Meanwhile, on the Empire's capital world of Velthar Prime, the High Council was convening an emergency session for the first time in over a century. The marble halls that had witnessed the planning of countless conquests now echoed with worried voices and urgent debates. "The reports from the 7th Fleet are unprecedented," announced the Supreme Chancellor, his ancient voice carrying the weight of millennia. "We appear to have encountered a species that not only resists our conquest, but actively improves upon our technology." The military advisor, a veteran of countless campaigns, studied the holographic reports with growing alarm. "Your Excellence, I believe we have made a fundamental error in our assessment. These humans aren't a primitive species that happens to be militarily inclined. They appear to be an entire civilization that has evolved specifically for warfare." The Supreme Chancellor's eyes widened as the implications became clear. "Are you suggesting that we have awakened a species that is naturally superior to us in combat?" "Worse than that, Your Excellence. We have awakened a species evolved for warfare and provided them with the technology to reach the stars." "Admiral." Holrex stood on the command deck of his flagship, staring at the impossible sight before him. Human ships had appeared in 3 different Velthari systems at the exact same moment. These weren't the primitive vessels they'd expected from a species that had only recently discovered faster-than-light travel. These ships moved like predators, sleek and deadly, carrying weapons that made his own fleet's technology look outdated. The tactical display showed the human fleet's formation. Each ship pulsed with energy signatures the Velthari computers couldn't fully identify. It was their own technology, yes, but changed and improved in ways that shouldn't have been possible. The humans had taken alien science and made it better in just months. "Sir, we could still launch a full assault on their homeworld," his tactical advisor said, voice tight with fear. "We have the coordinates. One massive strike could end this threat forever." Holrex turned to face his officer. The suggestion made military sense. Earth sat vulnerable, a single planet against an empire that controlled dozens of worlds. They could turn it into glass and ash before the human fleets could return to defend it. But something in the Admiral's mind warned against this path. "And then what happens?" Holrex asked quietly. "We destroy their world, kill billions of their people. Do you think their fleets will simply disappear? Do you think they'll forgive and forget?" The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood what he meant. They'd seen how humans responded to aggression. They'd watched a species go from nuclear weapons to interstellar warfare in record time. If the Velthari destroyed Earth, they wouldn't face a defeated enemy. They'd face a species with nothing left to lose and technology that grew more dangerous. By the day, we've created something we can't control, Holrex continued. Every empire makes this mistake eventually. We found what we thought was easy prey and instead woke a sleeping giant. Now we must live with consequences. The order went. Out across the Velthari fleet. Withdraw from human space immediately. No aggressive actions, no provocations. Just retreat and hope the humans would be satisfied with their victory. Back on Earth, the mood was very different. President Yu Jin stood before an emergency session of the Global Defense Council. The room buzzed with energy as she delivered her report. Humanity had won its first interstellar war, but this was just the beginning. The Velthari are pulling back from our territory, she announced. Our forces report no resistance to their withdrawal. It seems they've decided to cut their losses. Defense Minister Lim Tae leaned forward. Our deep space sensors have mapped their retreat paths. We now know the locations of at least 12 Velthari systems, possibly more. We have detailed scans of their technology, their ship designs, their weapons capabilities. The implications hung heavy in the air. Humanity had spent its entire history fighting itself, perfecting the art of war through countless conflicts. Now they had a new arena for those skills and an enemy that had shown them the vast opportunities among the stars. What are your recommendations? President Yu asked, though she already knew the answer. The factories are running at full capacity, Lim Tae reported. We're converting every available facility to military production. The orbital shipyards are expanding. We've begun construction on 3 new fleet bases in the outer system. Our people are volunteering for military service faster than we can process them. The numbers were staggering. In just 6 months since first contact, Earth had built more warships than the Velthari Empire had constructed in the past decade. Human engineers worked around the clock, taking captured alien technology and finding ways to improve it. A new ship was deadlier than the last. We've also begun long-range exploration missions, another council member added. Now that we understand their faster-than-light technology, we can go anywhere. Find resources, establish colonies, make contact with other species. President Yu nodded slowly. She understood what wasn't being said directly. Humanity wasn't going to stop with defending Earth. They'd tasted victory against a galactic empire and found it sweet. The same drives that had pushed humans to conquer their own planet now looked to the stars. In the depths of space, the first human exploration vessels began their journeys. These weren't peaceful scientific missions. Each ship bristled with weapons. Crewed by veterans of the Velthari conflict, they searched for new worlds to claim, new resources to harvest, and new enemies to test themselves against. The Velthari Empire watched from afar, horror growing with each intelligence report. They'd attacked Earth expecting to find primitive creatures barely worth conquering. Instead, they'd given humanity the keys to the galaxy and a reason to use them. The humans were learning, growing stronger, spreading further with each passing. The other species across the galaxy would soon learn what the Velthari had discovered too late. Humanity had spent thousands of years practicing war on itself, held back only by the limits of one small planet. Now those limits were gone. The sleeping giant was awake, armed with alien technology and human ambition. The universe would never be the same again. Earth's children were coming to claim their place among the stars, and they brought with them all the terrifying creativity that had made them masters of their own world. The Velthari had wanted to conquer Earth. Instead, they'd unleashed humanity upon the galaxy. The war machine that had once threatened to destroy Earth now had a new purpose. The factories would keep running, the ships would keep building, and somewhere in the void, human explorers pushed ever outward, hungry for whatever. Challenges awaited them in the infinite dark,